Well, here we are again with master teacher Charlie Sandlan at the Maggie Flanagan Studios in New York City.
That's right.
I have to tell you that one of my students who watched this,
Mhm.
it was like, he is sexy as hell. I
Yeah, I'll take it.
was like,
Thank
damn
you.
right. That's Charlie,
Listen,
man.
man, the older we get, you take whatever you can,
Exactly
whatever you
right.
can take. Absolutely, man.
Exactly.
I love it.
But the students, a few of the students watched the interview and they were captivated.
Oh, good.
Were
Well, I hope it
captivated.
helps. I hope it helps. This is
It
just,
did.
my
A
two
lot of
cents.
light bulbs went off.
Oh,
I
good,
think a
good.
lot of light bulbs went off.
And I'm
So
sure, I'm no doubt, 100%. I'm saying the same things you are. It's just sometimes when you hear it from somebody else that it can be said in a different way that just you know, oh, that's yeah, I get that. So it's always good to know that, like, okay, I have a number of people saying the same thing. So this must be right.
right. And well, and also, I am working and developing myself as a teacher, right? But you have been doing this for decades now. So you have a way
Yeah.
of working with the technique and working with students that you've had to deal with all walks, all
Oh
types,
yeah.
all walks,
100%.
all ways of understanding. Like,
Mhm.
so that's I think really helpful too. But so yeah, what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is you're dealing with the independent activities and you're crafting yourself a very personal reason for doing the activity.
Mhm.
And as I was saying before, part of the way I've described it is, you're writing your own given circumstances in a way that will deeply connect to your innermost meaning.
Mhm.
The meaning that really drives. That's what you want to find, man.
Mhm.
That's why you stay up all night finding a personal reason, something that drops way down in you.
Yep.
And but I've gotten some questions about, okay, if the students are able to get that, like I've actually seen some really nice work from some of the students that I'm working with in that respect, like coming
It's
up with
great.
some very strong reasons, and where they're really able to leave themselves alone, and just do what they say they're doing
Mhm.
and let the reason play on them,
Mhm.
right? But there's a lot of questions about, okay, so when I'm dealing with a script that I don't write, when I'm dealing with given circumstances that I can't relate to, because our life is narrow, man.
Right.
Our life is narrow. The actor's imagination is all. What do I do? How do I bring myself? Okay, I've worked on this sense of truth because I've worked on personal reasons. I've worked on deeply understanding what crafting an honest, specific, tight personal reason is. But now what do I do when I come to a script with a circumstance I don't relate to? How
Mhm.
do I make that? How do I bridge that gap? So
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that's a good question. I mean, listen, the whole point of first year is figuring out who the fuck you are,
Mm,
understanding what has real meaning for you, the material that you can mine in an imaginative way that will bring you to life.
yeah.
And because you got to know yourself. You cannot bring yourself to a piece of material if you don't know what resides inside of you, if you don't know where to go
Right.
inside yourself, and if you don't know how to relate to a circumstance with your own personal analogy or your own personal
Mm,
as if. So when you get a scene sides from a playwright or a screenwriter, right, and you isolate in that scene what the previous circumstance is, and you say, well, I don't know, I can't relate to that. Well, all right, let's say the previous circumstances that I don't know, I just found out that my child has been diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor.
mm.
Okay. I don't have kids, never had a
Right.
kid, no desire to have children, not part of my life. I don't know what it means to be a parent because I don't have that lived experience, but yet that's the part, that's the
Right.
scene. Well, you got to daydream yourself in that circumstance. So part of what you have to be able to do as the actor is actually you have to understand the circumstance emotionally.
Mm,
And if I sit with that and I say, well, how would I feel if this is true? I put myself in it. I don't, it's not
mm,
intellectual. You know, it's all what if, I have let's say the child's 10 years old, my
mm,
son, our only child. I sit with that. I drop it inside of me like you drop an
mm.
Alka-Seltzer tablet into a glass of water. I drop that,
It's a great analogy.
right? You
Yeah.
drop that inside yourself. And then what bubbles up? I sit with it. I go, I'd be devastated. I'd be fucking
Mm,
devastated. That's what I would be. Absolutely fucking devastated. Well, if I have to emotionally prepare off stage or off camera because I'm coming into the scene having just found this out, let's say,
mhm.
then I have to be emotionally related to that previous circumstance when I hear action or when I walk on that stage.
Yeah.
Now, I could sit off stage. This is what Miser teaches you, right? You know this. I could sit off stage and try to relate to that and sit with that circumstance, and it'll bring me to a little bit of life because I understand it. But there might be somewhere else, essentially, that I can go in my daydream and my fantasy that would devastate me,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's always about essence. It's not about anything literal. So
Yeah.
in my crafting and how I prepare, I know I got to go to set today, and this is the scene. Well, where could I go in my imagination that if I get lost in a vivid daydream, it's going to fucking break my fucking heart,
Yeah.
devastate me? I could be off camera. I'm off stage there. I'm lost in a very vivid daydream about putting my dog Wally to sleep. I'm
Yeah.
putting him
Yeah.
down. Do you know what I mean? And there I am holding him in his last final moments. This dog that has given me so much love and so much life. That I have real feelings about. And I sit with that and I get lost in that daydream and the vividness of it. And I come to a full life. And then I say to myself, this too is also true. My son
Yeah.
been diagnosed with cancer, right? The emotional life attaches itself to that circumstance because you've already done a little bit of homework on it. You hear action, you come on stage, you're fully alive.
Yeah.
No one knows that I was off stage daydreaming about putting my dog down. All they're going to see is my behavior and they're going to attach it to the circumstance that's in that scene.
Right.
And that's it.
Yep.
I don't have to go back into my past and churn up, my breakup with Andrea, right? And
Right.
how upset I was at the time. I don't have that anymore. I mean, that was fucking, what,
Right.
17 years ago. I don't have the same emotional response to that. So that's why Meisner is so wonderful is it's all about the imagination, your ability to daydream and fantasize.
Mhm.
And there's going to be some material that you cannot relate to. Sure, you can't play every part,
No, that's
and
true.
you
You don't
just
have it in your
can't.
can.
You can't listen. If you don't have a sense of humor, you're not going to play comedy. You know what I mean? That's just
Right.
a fact. But you do have the capacity to access all parts of yourself because you're a human being. And the more vivid
Mhm.
your imagination is, the more you know yourself really well, what has meaning for you, you can bring yourself to any life you need to.
Mhm.
But the key is knowing what you're working with, knowing the emotional life you're trying to access, being very clear with it. I do think that actors need a master's degree in emotion. That's the kind of insight
Yeah.
you need to have, right? To be able
Yeah.
to talk about it, to be able to work about it, to not just understand kind of the primary colors of emotional life, rage, joy, heartbreak, grief, shame, but there are
Mhm.
all different little parts of that are just so particular to a scene, the pinks, the lavenders, those little off hues, the tans, and so you got to really know yourself. You got to know how to work with yourself. You got to understand human emotion.
Yeah.
you know.
That's that's very clear. It's very clear and it's very simple as the biggest truths in life always are, particularly with acting. You can't work with anything that's too complicated or intellectual. The things are clear.
No, and
And
listen, in acting, you're going to work with complicated material, but as an actor, you're
right.
never going to be asked to be complicated. And this is in any
No.
art form. Your job is to make it simple, is to boil it down to something that's essential, that's easily actable, and to be able to craft and to talk to yourself in a way that you know exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
And then you got to be able to load all that in and then leave yourself alone, put your attention on the other person, and go from unanticipated moment to unanticipated moment, and just trust that it's there.
Yeah.
And that's difficult to do, as you know. That's the craft of it, the talent
That's the
of it,
big thing
artistry.
is, yeah, that's the big thing is trust. What I run into a lot is that people get very afraid that the scene won't
Of
have
course.
the content or the structure or the form or the moments that it needs to have if they don't force it. And that what I
Yeah.
love about this, what is so, as you said, foolproof about this, is that you are loading yourself up with the right meanings, the right
Yeah.
deeply personal meanings, and
Yep.
let those play on you, let your
Hmm.
partner play on you, and it will come out the way it needs to come out.
You got to trust that the other
Just
person is
happen.
going to extract all of that from you, whoever you're
That's
in.
yeah,
You know what I mean? If I just listen to you, take it personally, work off of you, it'll all be there. You know,
mhm,
actors that force things or try to work for a result of something or push, you know
mhm.
what I mean? It's an actor that's very result conscious, is worried about making sure that people see what they're doing, as
Yep, showing
opposed to
their
just
homework.
trust. That's right, is just leave myself alone and trust that it's there. And it sounds like a very cliched acting teacher thing to say. Oh, just leave yourself alone. Do you know what I mean? Trust that you're enough. These things that can
Right.
be said to you in acting class. But it's actually a very high-end note.
Yeah,
And it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do,
it
right?
sure is.
To leave yourself alone and to not worry about showing anything, to not worry about the quantity of your emotional life, but the quality of it.
Yep.
You know, it's
No,
better
that's
to
it.
have, it
Quality.
is, it's better to have this much going on in you and have it be authentic and organic than something like that's pushed and forced and squeezed out.
I don't remember if Bill actually said this, but what I remember, one of the things that I remember him saying anyway was, "An ounce of truth is worth a pound of bullshit."
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's a take on Meisner's. In the hallway in my in the studio here, I have a huge quote down the wall that says, "An ounce of behavior is worth a pound of words." And
oh wow, yeah,
that's a direct Meisner quote. So it was a riff on that, but that's true. An ounce of behavior is worth a pound of words. It's all
yeah,
about behavior
yeah.
at the end of the day.
Can you talk? And I know this is going real simple. You've spoken about a lot of stuff that's both simple and really sophisticated. I think a lot of people really don't
Mhm.
understand how sophisticated acting needs to be and how your dedication
No,
needs to be.
no, that's why everybody thinks they can do it,
Right.
because they look at acting and they go, "Oh, how hard can that be? Really? Go ahead, give it a shot."
Give it a shot.
Because the
Well, your job as the
virtuosity,
actor is to make your technique invisible.
that's right, and the best actors do that. That's why it looks so effortless.
Right.
I'm not going to go to the Met and watch the ABT and watch the Nutcracker or Swan Lake and go, "Oh, I could do that."
Right.
You know, the virtuosity as a parent, you watch that, or you watch a great
Yeah.
musician, or you watch, you know, a great athlete. You just, there's no way I could ever do this. But people
Mhm.
see great acting and they go, "Oh, it looks so effortless." They're just saying lines. They have no fucking clue what they're talking
Yeah.
about.
Right.
The
That's
amount of
right.
work it takes. It's an extraordinary amount of work.
There's a couple of thoughts I want to explore. One of them is a more basic one. Like, would you explain, talk a little bit about what you mean by pushing? Because a lot of people don't really understand what that is. It's another term that's thrown around a lot, but a lot of actors, because they really get locked into this idea of that truth is equals, intensity equals truth,
Oh,
right?
listen,
They get locked into the amount,
intensity does not mean that you're good.
right?
And the one thing that you need to take away as an actor, and what you really need to understand in your bones, is that acting is effortless.
Mhm.
And that if it feels like you're acting, you're acting. But
Feeling
what
of, yeah,
it's effortless. And I mean, my students, when they first experience effortlessness and they're done working, and I say to them, "That was really good."
mhm.
They don't know how to, it doesn't make any sense to them, because they're like,
Mhm.
"What?
They weren't,
I wasn't doing anything. That was good.
right,
That was really good." And you actually were doing. But because they weren't pushing, they weren't forcing, they weren't trying to show anything.
right,
They weren't ouching louder than they're pinched. They
right,
weren't tense. They were just leaving themselves alone. It's it's graceful. It's got ease to it, and there's clarity. And what happens with young actors, young meaning you're just starting out in this art form, you work a hell of a lot harder than you need to.
yeah,
And to the untrained actor, the actor that doesn't really take themselves seriously, they hear these notes: "Oh, you're doing too much. Do less. Do less. No, you're working too hard." And they think that means, "Oh, all I got to do is just say my lines."
right, yeah,
And I will tell
and
you,
sound
unless
natural. Yeah.
that's right. If you're a day player or an under five, just say your fucking lines. No one gives a fuck about you. You just got to further the story along, and it doesn't really matter. You're not; those aren't actors.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But major parts, you have to be able to be fully, vividly alive, and you got to have ease.
Yeah. It's like
And you've
Leonard
got to
says, a
have
feeling of ease, you know?
ease, emotional fluidity, and that takes you working on your instrument. You know, it takes you working on your voice. It takes you working on your body. You have to master your instrument. And any great artist does that. Any serious artist, I don't care what the art form is. And so an actor that just goes and takes a couple of acting classes doesn't really fully like train themselves, their voice, their body. You're not going to
Yeah,
do that good. You're just
that's
not.
right.
And most actors think that oh, it's about conversational reality. Conversational reality is not acting.
No. No.
You know. But yeah, no, it's hard to have ease. You have to get to really trust yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, and I think, you know, part of pushing for me is they get something, there's a little life going on inside of them, and they
Latch
grasp
onto
around
that.
it with their fist, and
Absolutely.
they're like, how do I
Yes.
amplify this? I got a
Yes.
megaphone it,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Yes. And you're trying to squeeze out emotion like, you know, juice from a lemon.
It's not about emotion, it's about
Listen,
behavior.
everybody in the world does everything they can not to feel,
Right.
not to come to life, keep their shit together. It is only actors that want to swim and stew in self-indulgent emotion.
Mhm.
The best acting is when you see people fully fucking alive trying to keep their shit together.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but if you don't have anything to hide, it doesn't mean anything.
It's
So
just
you
empty.
have to be
Exactly.
fully emotionally alive. You have to have a full emotional reservoir. But acting is the ability to do truthfully. It is not the ability to feel.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you certainly want emotion because it's revelatory, and it certainly fills out your work and makes it much more nuanced and deep. But you can't rest anything on emotion. You know, you're doing 8 shows a week for 8 months or a year and a half. You're not going to be alive every fucking night.
That's right.
You're not going to be alive every take, but you still got to do the show. You still got to do the take. You still got to go out there and do the performance.
Right.
And so you can't worry about emotion. You can't be worried about that, or think it's about how much I show to the world. No, you don't. You don't show anything as an actor. You do.
Yeah.
And if it's truthful and it's alive, they'll see it. We'll get it.
It'll be revealed.
It'll be revealed in your behavior.
Yeah. One of the things that, and the other thing too, that I think that I've heard a lot from people who don't like to work in this way. It's a lot of work, and they have a lot of intellectual reasons to reject it. You know, that I was talking to a friend of mine who was a director, and he said, it's like, oh man, the audience is never going to know. You don't need to have all this stuff. It's all self-indulgent, you know, all this sort of the work that we do to instill a role and
All the
instill
crafting
the
and all the
meanings of it.
homework and stuff.
Yeah, all of that stuff in our bodies, or you know, to be in the moment, to work off
That's
the
a
other
director that
person, to be
knows nothing
alive.
about the craft of acting. That's a
Right.
director that knows nothing about the art of acting.
And what he said that I think floored me the most is he said, the audience is never going to know. And it was the most insulting thing to an audience I'd ever heard. Of course they're going to know.
Yeah, they might
Even if
not
they
know
can't
why.
articulate it.
Yeah, they might not
Exactly.
know why this sucks.
But they'll
They
know.
know it sucks.
Yep.
They just couldn't articulate it because they're not craftsmen. They're not craftspeople. That's not their medium. But I'll tell you, a dentist can, you know, a really first-rate dentist look in somebody's mouth and look at that root canal and tell you if that's a first-rate job or it's a hack job, and they can tell you exactly why.
Yep. Well, the other thing too is that the way that I know, if I set aside all the training I've had, if I just go and watch something, the way I know whether it's good or not is whether or not I, as an audience member, am opened up.
Yeah.
If I'm not opened up, it didn't do its work.
An audience lives vicariously through the actors that they're watching. And if the actors are not organically, experientially alive, the audience is not going to feel anything.
Right.
When you come to life as an audience member, is because you are living vicariously through the actors on screen or on stage.
Yeah.
It's because they're living through something truly.
Yep. Yeah. I think one of the other things I wanted to go back to too was when you're talking about discovering yourself, figuring out who you are in the first year work, right? Discovering
What makes
it's
you
not
tick.
just the emotional reservoirs you have. It's not just building your instrument, because working on your instrument is, you know, is how you have yourself. It's not just discovering who you are in terms of your emotion, your emotional capacity, or your emotional life, and being free as a person. But it's also discovering, you know, as you work on your body, as you work on your voice, it's discovering who you are in those ways, who you are physically.
Yeah.
You know, but one of the things that I think is really interesting about really opening yourself up to discovering all of those shades that you talked about by really confronting the circumstance. It's, you discover that that's one of the ways when I've been able to do that, that's one of the ways in which the behavior, really, it's one of the ways in which unanticipated moments, that's partly how they come.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a circumstance that's creating all kinds of unexpected behavior, because how I relate to the circumstance is shades and nuance and all sorts of unexpected. Like, I didn't know I felt that way.
Yeah.
Why am I responding this way to this? Well, it doesn't matter. Just go, you know?
Right. Just go with the truth. You got to prize the moment. You know, a really good actor, this is why I love Meisner. It teaches you how to be fully present, out of your head, in the moment. And the moment trumps everything. Do you know what I mean? Really good actors, man, they'll give you, on take one, they'll give you, they'll do it one way. Take two is going to be different. Take three is going to be different. Take four is going to be different. And you got to be able right there to hang in that kind of work, to be able to like go with the truth of the moment, not locked into your homework or not acting at the other person, but allowing yourself to just go with the truth of the moment. Not doing line readings, adjusting to the text, manipulating yourself emotionally in order to fit a line. Those are all hack acting, you know, mistakes.
Right.
Waiting for your cues, you know, not responding in every moment.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where a lot of actors get trapped too, is they're afraid of takes being different, right? Because whether or not they can articulate it, what they're afraid of is that the action that needs to happen isn't going to happen, right? But you pursue your actions. You do what you say you're doing, but the way it manifests is only, you know.
But listen, you could be changed in a moment. An actor can give you a moment or do something that you didn't expect that can totally change you. And sometimes your homework just flies out the window because I'm going to go with the truth of the moment. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It'll change your action. It'll change you.
Change everything. You get locked into something. You see it on stage so much, and on the camera too. Actors just acting at each other, acting at you
in bubbles.
And there's nothing going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're doing your performance. This actor's doing their performance. You're doing it at each other. There's not a real fucking moment happening at all. And that's when an audience is like, "What's for dinner tonight? When is it? You know,
Right.
Are we leaving at intermission?" You know, because
actors become, you know, they fall in love with their ideas.
Well, if they're good ideas, you need ideas, as you know. You've got to have a ton of ideas, a shitload of ideas. You better love your ideas. You better be excited by them. They got to turn you on. But then at the end of the day, I'm not important. The other person is. That's one of the big things to drill into, certainly in first year. I'm not important. The other person is.
Right. Yeah, no, I guess what I mean is they decide on an idea, they decide how powerful or clever or whatever it is. And they won't let it go.
No matter what. They just do it no matter what.
They won't let it go.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the same as actors.
I ever heard you. No, I was just one of the best things I ever heard you say, and I think Maggie said it as well, is with respect to ideas too, is like your job as an actor, you'll start with a ton of ideas and a ton of behavior as you work on as you work through it, as you find the deeper and deeper truth. But eventually your job as an actor is to pare it down so that what comes out of you, the life that comes out of you, is only that behavior all of the behavior and only that behavior that is necessary
Yeah.
to tell the
Well, I mean,
story.
that's a whole nother level of sophistication as an actor, is to really strip away all the pedestrian clutter,
Mhm.
unconscious physical shit that is our isms, Charlieisms, Quinnisms.
Yeah.
You want everything you do to be a fully realized human being. I mean, that's character acting. That's the top of the profession. And if you look at really great actors, they only do what they need to do, no more, no less. There's no cluttering, there's no
Mhm.
unconscious shit. You know what I mean? Because they have absolute control of their instrument.
Right.
And that's the top of the art form.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things too, going back to the reason that Meisner emphasized so much the importance of the actor's imagination.
It's the most important part of your instrument.
Well, and when you're crafting circumstances, when you're confronting a circumstance in a script, right? As I said before, you're lucky if you find something in a story that relates directly to an experience you've had in your life
Oh
in
my
a
God.
way that will evoke
Very
those
rarely.
shades that you're talking about.
Very rarely.
Right. And it's like, okay, you may have something that you can confront in your life that might evoke grief, right?
Mhm.
But that grief is about a specific person in a specific situation in my life. It is not the grief that this character is necessarily feeling. It doesn't have those shades. The circumstances all in terms of that, right?
Mhm.
So you confront it, that gets you a certain distance. And then you got to figure out, okay, but what are the shades here? What are,
Yeah.
you might bring you to life, you might cry, but they may not be the right kind of tears. And it's not about the tears anyway,
Right. Right. It's very difficult. Absolutely. I mean, emotion is a fickle thing. It's got to be very fluid in you. It's got
Mhm.
to ebb and flow like water going in and out of lungs.
And that's why this technique works on it. It doesn't
Mhm.
work on it for a result. It works on it so that your instrument is trained, as you were saying, so that it can respond the way it needs to respond, when it needs to respond. But that isn't what your attention's on. That isn't what you're trying to
No,
go for.
no, your attention should never be on yourself. You should never be worried about what's going on inside of you, because then you're just fundamentally off. Your placement of concentration, right, is a fundamental of acting, and it should never be on yourself. It's always on the other person or what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself in your head, you find yourself, up here, the quickest way that you solve that is to get your attention back on your acting object
Mhm.
and really listen, or really do whatever it is that it's required in that particular moment. But yeah, I mean, that's hard. That's why you gotta you just gotta have such a solid way of working that you know how to navigate all of these things and they don't throw you. You know what I mean? It's like having full control of your instrument. And
Well,
it takes years. It takes years to do that.
oh yeah. Was it 20 years to become an actor?
Well, I mean, I tell all my students, you got to give yourself a decade. You got to give
Yeah.
yourself a solid decade before you make any kind of assessment about, your career and where you're at in life. And if you're not willing to give it a decade, a real full 10 years, forget it.
Yeah. Find something else you're passionate about. Passion
Find
is,
something else you're passionate about.
yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. You know what I mean? 100%. You should be happy.
One of the other really, really basic fundamental concepts where it all starts is really listening, really responding.
Yeah.
But you say that, and a lot of the people I talk to, they just go glassy-eyed. I don't think what does it mean to really listen? What does it mean to really listen? What does
Well,
it mean to really respond?
acting is a subtext exercise at its core, right? Acting is subtext. Lines can mean anything. Do you know what I mean? It's not about the lines. I mean, yes, you're hearing what's being said to you, but how it's being said to you is everything.
Yeah.
The line might be, "Hey, baby, do I look good in this dress?" And the line might be, "Yeah, you look great." That's the line.
Right.
There's a big difference between, yeah, you look great. And yeah, you look great. And if you can't work off the meaning of the moment, you're not working off another human being. And so listening is being able to respond to not just what's being said to you, but how it's being said to you.
Right.
It has to do with being able to be played upon and changed by another human being, permeated, so that you're working from of your vulnerability and your sensitivity, and not just listening, but listening for the first time. I just went off on my class today because they're at the door. The door work is just not where it needs to be right now.
Yeah.
And if you can't be spontaneously surprised and curious, if it can't happen here in the body,
Yeah.
you're just in your head.
Yep.
You know, and they're like deer in headlights. You know, they're like it's like they're standing there watching the fucking penguins at the zoo play. They're not working off of what's happening to them, you know. And you have to, I told them today, I said, you know what I'm teaching you here? This is not sophisticated stuff. This is fundamental. And if you cannot do this, you are not an actor and you will never be a good one. I said, it's like somebody who's wants to be a professional baseball player, but doesn't know how to hold a bat.
Yeah.
That's what listening is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yes, it needs to be drilled into you, and it needs to be, you know, you need to really work very hard to be able to do it. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's the most important
Do
part
what
of
you can.
acting. Listen to any really good actor who's talking about craft and talking about, you know, like what's the most important thing as an actor? Every single one of them, always listening, really listening to what's being said to you, taking it personally. And that's why the Meisner work is this is what separates a Meisner actor from any other actor, is their ability to really listen. Because that repetition exercise, you know, you're doing it over and over and over again, and it forces you to be right there in the moment, hearing what's being said to you, taking it in. You know,
Until
it
that
has to
meaning
be
strikes
that.
your body. That real meaning.
Yes, you got to be permeated.
I love that. I love what you said about, you know, you have to be open and receptive to being changed. And so that
Yeah,
when you say responding truthfully, what we're really talking, the body responds. This isn't an intellectual thing. You don't
no,
have
it's
to,
not.
we talk about like, okay, what do you see and how do you feel about it? But you don't have to understand how you feel about it. You don't have to
Mm-mm.
think of how you feel about it.
No,
It happens to you. It
just
happens in your body before you're aware
that's
of it.
life. You don't walk around life going, "Oh, I wonder how I feel about this." Oh,
No,
I'm supposed to, oh, how do I feel about? No, you just have a physical response, an emotional response, and you know, there's nothing intellectual about it.
no.
You know, acting is, you know, it's like an iceberg. You know, that 10% that's above water, that's, you know, okay, I got to do my homework. I got to implant some meanings. I've got to like work out my beats. And there's that 10% that is an intellectual thing. That's that homework. But the other 90% is, it's got nothing to do with here up,
Yeah.
you know, but that takes time.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, that's why, you know, it's first year, it's a whole year. That work at the door takes a lot of time. You're talking about chiseling away decades of walls, barriers that you have constructed to put up to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself functioning in the world.
Mhm.
But it's walled up that kid in you. It's walled up that 2-year-old that's playful and curious and doesn't give a fuck and is really going to make an ass of themselves. And to chisel those walls away to get to the more vulnerable and sensitive part of you, that takes months. As you know, it's the hardest part of the training.
Mhm.
It's the hardest part. It's the most frustrating part. It's the scariest part. You know, you're nothing behind to hide behind. You know, and then getting comfortable expressing yourself, getting comfortable being able to stand up for yourself. You
I
know,
think, yeah, and I think one of the things that's really critical too is um it's understanding the intelligence of the body, right? You
mm-hmm,
know, like
mm-hmm.
if you have to trust something in yourself, that's what you trust. That's what you trust. And it's paring away all of the ways in which we undermine that, in which we sabotage that. I watch my 4.5-year-old, and in one moment, it is like he does this thing where something will happen he doesn't like, and he's like, I never want to have fun again. I never want to see a movie again. Like, we tell him he can't watch a movie. Oh, that's it. No more movies.
Yeah.
He just loses his shit. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, it's like, oh, daddy.
Yeah, it's like puppies. That's the great thing about children, is that they're just so fully present in the moment. They're just in the moment. It's about right now. And that's, as actors, it's a very important way to work.
Well, one of the lessons that I've learned from my son too, with respect to this, is in one moment he's telling me that he just hates me. Like, he hates me. I hate you more than anyone I've ever hated my entire life. And then literally 10 minutes later, he'll be like, Daddy, I love you more than anything in the whole world, no matter what.
Yeah, that's great.
And he fully believes both of those things.
Yep.
And that's what an actor working moment to moment, that's exactly what happens to you.
Absolutely. You're just going for a ride. I tell my students, you got to think of this analogy of like a water skier, right? Water skiers, got that rope that's tied to the boat. The water skier is not in control, right? It's the boat that is leading you. And as an actor, you're holding on to that rope for dear life, and the other person's the boat. If you just hold on to them, they'll take you everywhere. They'll take you all over the place.
One of the last things I wanted to just talk about real quick was, when you say taking it personally, how would you explain that to someone? How do you explain
Well, art
that to
is personal.
the first time?
Art's personal. And if you're not able to work in a deeply personal way, why should anybody fucking pay to watch you?
Right. Yeah.
So if you're going to move an audience, if you're going to do something that is revelatory about the human condition, because that's what I think really great art does, it reveals something about the human condition. And acting that's what it is. It's a workout of the human heart. And just ask yourself, well, what kind of acting do I like? When am I moved? It's when you're seeing the human condition exercised in a very vivid and visceral way. So you come to acting training because you say, oh, I want to be an actor. But you've got all of these blocks and all of these things that keep you from being played upon. And so you have to train yourself. And so it's got to be personal. Otherwise, what's the point?
Well, I think a lot of the ways in which some of my students have misunderstood that term is when they come to the repetition exercise and talk about taking things personally, taking everything personally. What I think a lot of them hear is that they're making everything about themselves, right?
You have a point of view. You're expressing your opinion. You're expressing your point of view. And in life, we don't do it. We lie all day. That's all we do. That's how you get through life, is to lie. We're all very good liars, and you have to be. Just think about any of you listening to this conversation. If you just went throughout your entire day today and expressed how you really felt in every single moment, you would probably be fired. There would be some serious bad things that could happen to you. There could be some wonderful things that happen to you, but we withhold our truth all the time. But in acting and in art, you have to be able to express yourself. And so the training Meisner's training is to get you comfortable expressing yourself in a very personal way. All you have to bring to any art form is your authenticity, who you are. And if I'm going to see 300 people for this fucking part, and I'm watching 300 self-tapes, what makes you any different? And I guarantee you, if they see 300 fucking self-tapes, 280 of them are going to be doing the exact same thing. You're like wallpaper. You're all doing
Right.
the same cliched things, same line reading, same just crap. And then you've got an actor that comes on that's alive, that's present, that's listening, that's in the moment. And people are like, what the fuck was that? I didn't even know that was I didn't even know the scene could go that way.
Well, and that's I think when you're talking about bringing your full personal truth and speaking it and feeling it
absolutely.
and doing it, when you're working, that's what we mean by taking it personally, speaking out of your personal truth,
Yeah.
acting from
Your
your personal
opinion,
truth.
your point of view. It's no different if I were to hang up a Picasso nude on the wall next to a Lucian Freud nude on the wall, next to a Francis Bacon nude on the wall, next to a Basquiat, right? 4 nudes from 4 different painters. What makes each one of them unique? It is
Right.
that artist's personal point of view about the object upon which they are expressing on that canvas. And they're all different. And as an actor, if you want to be interesting, and because there's nobody like you,
Right.
you have to be able to function from who you are, the truth of you, your imagination, your sense of humor, the way you see the world. And if you can't
You don't
function
have
from that,
anything else to bring.
no, you've
You
got
may
nothing else to
think you do,
bring.
but you got nothing
No.
else. And that's the most interesting thing to bring.
Yes.
There's, as you said, there's no one like you, and your
Like,
voice
what
needs
makes
to
you
be heard.
different? Why am I gonna pay you $50,000 a week
Right.
to be a series regular on this fucking show? Who are you?
Mhm.
You've got to be able to bring yourself to any art form. You know what I mean? Great writers, great musicians. I mean, say what you want about Taylor Swift, but that motherfucker can write like nobody's business.
Yeah, no shit.
She is so personal, so raw. Adele's the same way. Biggie was the same way. Drake's the same way. You go down the line. The best art is from a very deeply personal, risky place. You're putting your soul on the line. If you're not willing to do that, you're not an artist.
No, that's right.
You're just
That's right.
not. And you can be an actor. Doesn't mean you're an artist.
No, there's a big difference.
You can be a cook. Doesn't mean you're a chef.
No.
You can be a fucking dancer. Doesn't mean you're a prima ballerina. And so a lot of it has to do with, well, what's the vision of the type of actor I want to be? What's the vision of the type of artist I want to be? What's important to me?
Well, I think it's what a lot of, a lot of what I see around here is that either that question isn't really confronted. They don't really confront that question, or they think that that part's going to somehow just happen, right? That they're just going to become an artist,
No,
or if it's not going to
just
make them
happens.
money, they don't care, right?
Right. Well, if you're approaching any art form because you want to make money, you're not going to make it.
No.
That's just a fact. That cannot be the primary reason that you pursue an artistic career. It's got to be because you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. It's because you love it so fucking much that you could do it for free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just want to do it. I just want to work. And if you bust your ass, well, then money can come from it. Absolutely. But that can't be the reason you get into it or want to be famous or anything like that, And a lot of people, well, they're just curious. Oh, I'm curious. See, when I don't take anybody at the studio if they come and interview with me and they're just curious about something. Oh yeah, I'm just curious about it. I want to see if something I can do. No. I want to work with people that's like, you know what? I came here to New York. I moved all the way across the fucking country. I want to act. I know I need to be seriously trained. Those are the people I want to work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's hard. It's just really fucking hard. But to be good at anything is hard.
Absolutely.
To be great at anything is hard. It doesn't matter what it is. But there's an obsession.
That's actually part of it too, is what kind of vision do you have for your life?
Right.
Do you want to live the kind of life where you are pursuing something, whether it's acting or not, that you're deeply inspired by, that you are inspired enough by to go after it hard, to become great for its own sake, for its own sake. Or do you want to get through?
Right. And most people do just enough to get by.
Yeah.
But the cream always rises to the top. That's a cliche, but it's the fucking truth. You know, there are a lot of really talented people that don't add up to very much because they don't work hard. And conversely, there are a lot of really untalented people that have really incredible careers because they just bust their fucking ass. They bust their ass. And that's what it requires. And so if you end up wanting to compete at the top of the profession, you're going to be competing against people that are obsessed, that have been doing this heart and soul for years, decades. You better be able to walk into that room or put something on the tape that matches that kind of work ethic. Or you just become exposed as a hack or somebody that's not too serious or somebody that needs to be trained, you know. No one will take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously first.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's a real big one.
No one will treat you like an artist if you don't treat yourself like one first.
That's where, and that's a sort of another danger. Something I struggled with was, as I'm sure you remember, but that sort of insecurity and neuroticism that comes with that winds you up in that place of not taking yourself seriously, you know, of apologizing for it when you talk to people about it. And not because you're not dedicated, but because, like, do I have a right to do this? And
do I have a right to even say it? That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And you're actually the only one who can decide that.
That's right. 100%. Oh yes, I remember all the self-flagellation to give Quinn a cat of nine tails so we can.
I was always pissed off it didn't have 10.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Look at this, guys.
Yeah, that's funny. No, it's you know, I just think it's a rewarding life. It's a hard life. But you just have to love it. If you don't love it, if you don't love what it is you're doing, it's very hard to go after it with everything you have.
And that's what you got to do.
And that's true with anything. You know, and if you do think you're talented, if you do think you have something to offer, if you do think you have something that you can contribute, that you have something to say, and you love it, then you owe it to yourself to work hard and bust your ass.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, it's been a deep, deep pleasure.
Oh, yeah, man. Listen, as I always say to you, anytime, man, I'll come on here and shoot the shit.
Well, I love you, man.
Love it. Yeah, likewise, man. This was great.
And I'll reach out to you again. We'll find something.
Okay, sounds good, buddy.
Okay.
All right. If I don't see you, have a good holiday. If I'll talk to you,
yeah, you as well.
Christmas. Okay. All right,
you.
man. Peace.
Bye.